Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruth Frazier, and I'm the training coordinator for Evergreen, Indiana. Welcome to this Training Tuesday for the Evergreen, Indiana Library Consortium. Today's topic is communication styles. Today, we are pleased to welcome Sherri Risse, the Director of Spencer County Public Library. She is an active member of the Evergreen, Indiana community, serving on the Patron Services Committee. Sherri presented on this topic in a more condensed manner during the 2019 fall workshop, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. We're happy to have her back today to go a little more in depth on understanding communication styles. So I'm going to unshare my screen so that Sherri can now share her screen, and I'm going to let her take it away.
So, welcome everybody. My name is Sherri Risse, and I wanted to start just by learning how to use this. Okay, this is my library, Spencer County Public Library. We are way down south on the Ohio River. We are almost at the very southernmost point of the state. And just to give you a very, very brief, a little bit of information about myself. I've worked in libraries for about 20 years. I have been in all different positions. I started in high school as a page or a student worker, and I have worked my way up and done lots of different things in libraries. So I've worked for Indianapolis Public, New Albany Public, Evansville Public, and now Spencer County Public Library. And actually Spencer County is where I grew up, so I came home. And I'm very glad I did. I love it here. So along with library work, though, I have also had lots of other jobs. So I have I've been an office assistant in a foundry. I've worked at Subway as a sandwich maker. I have been a daycare worker, a church secretary. I've worked in retail. So I've had lots of different jobs. And I'm only saying all of that to give you an idea that I've been in lots of different work situations and in many different roles. And therefore, I think I've learned a lot about communication over all these years. So I'm definitely not an expert. I don't have any specific training. I just find what I'm going to talk about today very interesting. And I think it really did impact how I communicate with people. So I want to share it with people. And hopefully it will resonate with you as well. So Ruth, if you don't mind, I'm only seeing my screen that I'm sharing. So if you can just make sure that things are going as they're supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I see questions or comments, then I will also probably interrupt you and let you know. Courtney just said that she just had a recovered memory that she worked for you. You hired her as, this is Courtney Brown, who is a regional coordinator at the State Library now. You hired her as a page when she was in high school at the Wanamaker branch of NDP.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Well, hi, Courtney. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I just very, very quickly want to give you some things to think about. Have you ever tried to communicate with a group of people only to find that what you were trying to say got lost in translation? Or maybe some of you found that your points weren't understood. Maybe some people found that they were well supported and were very clear. Maybe others got lost in all of the details and were overloaded. This is because different types of communication exist in the workplace and in life. So understanding all these differences may help us to reduce some communication barriers. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea of when you communicate with your staff or your coworkers, what do you see? Do you get these reactions? What reactions do you get most often? What we need to do is we need to figure out how people are perceiving us. So a lot of things that I'll say today may sound like they're for managers or supervisors or directors, but everything can apply to everyone. It doesn't matter what position you're in. So it can definitely apply to your coworkers, to your friends. It can apply to anybody. So if I say it in a way that sounds like it's just for supervisors or managers, try to interpret that for your own role. So a lot of us have read articles and attended conference sessions. We've been to workshops all about communication. You may have heard about different types of communication, different styles. And so these are some of the key words you may have heard before. So you may be familiar with those 4 big ones that people talk about, like passive or passive aggressive or assertive. Some of these other ones pop up in literature when you're reading about communication styles, whether you're a conscientious communicator or an influencer. So there's lots of different keywords out there when you talk about communication styles. But there's also different types of learning styles. So before I go to the next screen though, when we talk about communication styles, what we often think about is we think about the way we're giving information. And that really, most of the literature on that really pertains to how information comes out. It's an outward communication. But a lot of these studies and tips really don't address how people need to take in information. So today I'm challenging all of us that if you're the person who is trying to communicate, if you're trying to get a point across or give out information, then it's really up to us. If we want things to be successful, then it's really up to us to make sure that the receiver of that information understands and is receiving that information in a way they can use it best. So that gets us to learning styles, because that really deals with the aspect of how the person is taking in information. So a person may take in information in some of those familiar terms, again, visually, tactily. They may need to be have their information presented logically. They may be an auditory learner, a verbal learner. So a lot of these words probably look familiar too. But one of the things that really resonated with me the most is how these two things, these two concepts really relate to each other. So how a person learns or takes in information is directly related to communication styles. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So several years ago, I was part of a group. I was part of Leadership Evansville. And so I went through that program. And then again, a few years ago when I came to Spencer County Public Library, I went through the Leadership Spencer County program. And in both of those experiences, we took an assessment about learning, thinking, working preferences, and then we scored our responses and plotted them on a graph. And this was how we started off our unit on communication and working as a group. So these are just some names that are out there when people are discussing learning and communication style assessments. So because I don't have copyright permission and I'm not a licensed sharer of all this information, I just wanted to give you some names of the assessments. You can look them up if you're interested in doing one of these assessments. Most of them do have a cost associated if you want the official versions. So I just threw that out there on a slide so you could have it. And this, it's an illustration of how each person takes in the same situation differently. So I think most of us understand that if a person is giving out information, if it's a lecture or if it's a meeting or whatever it may be, the people in the audience can all hear things differently, or they can all feel it differently. So it looks like in these pictures that people are in the same situation, but they're all reacting in a variety of manners. So the two groups that I was part of when we took the learning assessments, they were all based on David Kolb's Learning Styles Inventory. So like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just going to talk today about things that I've learned and things that really resonated with me. So this is a tool that if you use it in this manner, it can help you figure out how to effectively communicate with someone by understanding how they need to receive information. It's important to know your own style, but it's really helpful to learn how your coworkers, your staff, your boss best receive and understand information. So this is the graph that you use when you are plotting your responses after you take a Kolb learning inventory. And he divided up his styles into these 4 main areas. So just a brief sentence or two about David Kolb. In 1984, Professor Kolb developed his own theory of experiential learning, which states knowledge results from the combination of grasping experience and then transforming it. Research conducted by Kolb emphasizes that experiential learning has 4 elements. They are concrete experience, and then on the opposite side of that is abstract conceptualization. So one is experiencing something, and the opposite side of it is thinking about it. And then active experimentation, which means doing something, and the opposite side of that is reflective observation, which is really reflecting on it and watching things, observing. So that's this chart, and kind of gives you an idea. Once you take an inventory and you plot your responses, you're going to plot kind of dots on this chart, and then you connect them. So when you connect them, they can look like this. So this is 2 different people's plots. Most people, almost all people, will definitely have plots in all 4 quadrants. So that means that you may have a dominant style of learning, but it's really important to remember that a learning style describes how we learn, not how well we learn or if we can learn. It only means how you learn. So no style is any better than any other. No style is any worse than any other. They're only different. So understanding the commonalities and differences between your learning style and those you're working with can be useful in communicating more effectively. It can also give you an idea of your strengths and where you can grow and how you can change to make things better. So, in doing a lot of research, and honestly, over the last week or so, this presentation has changed a million times, and I keep finding more and more information or things that one researcher contradicts another researcher. So these are just things, like I said before, that impacted me and I felt like were very valuable. So I pulled things that I felt really applied to how we communicate with each other. So like I showed you on the screens before, Kolb's graph has concrete experience up here. And really that means how you feel about things. It leans more towards feelings and emotions, but actual experiences. Down here at the bottom, this tends to be more thinking, more ideas. And then on the left is active. It's more doing, hands-on. And on the right is reflective. It has to do with observation and watching and taking things in. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just briefly talk about each section and what that means. So I know there's lots of words here, and I'm sorry, I'm going to read a lot of it. So I'm starting with the upper left quadrant in that chart, and it was red, so I did this in red. The terms used in the literature can say activist, initiator, socializer, accommodator. So those are all terms used to mean basically the same type of learner or communicator. So in that quadrant, people tend to feel things and want to do things. So they feel it, they're active, they want hands-on, they are intuitive, they usually are risk takers. They kind of get caught up in things, and they want to see the big picture. They want the end result. They don't really care about all the little details in between. This person usually wants visuals. They want to be given lots of options. They usually trust their gut instincts. They go with their hunches. They always want to be where the action is. There are some key words that describe this type of learner. They're energetic, spontaneous, animated, persuasive. They're an influencer. They're encouraging, outgoing, self-assured. They're an optimist. And if you ask them, if you're working on a project, their mantra, what they would say would be, let's do this. They are go-getters. So some of the, not negative, but some of the opposite things that a person might need to watch out for a person in this quadrant, they can be impulsive, especially when it comes to decisions. They might take unnecessary risks, a lot of times because they haven't taken the time to figure all the little details out before they jump. They might have short attention spans. They often find it hard to work alone. They prefer working in a big group. They want support for their ideas. They like trial and error. They really like an upbeat, exciting work environment where they can be the center of attention. So going on to the next quadrant. This is the upper right quadrant in that Kolb chart. And the words used often for that quadrant are reflector, relator, harmonizer, or diverger. And I often get caught up in the words they use. And sometimes, when I say they, I mean different researchers or people writing articles. They use these different words, and sometimes to me, they don't seem like they go together. So I'm just giving you the words used so that when you come across an article or something that you're reading and see one of the terms, you can say, oh yeah, that was that same quadrant, just so you can kind of decide or figure out which quadrant it went in. So if you scored heavily in the upper right quadrant, that person usually feels things and they want to watch things. They want to observe. So they're very personal. They're inclusive. They really value participation as a group. They value harmony and relationships with people, often over other things. They really establish a rapport with others, and that can be with coworkers or with customers and patrons. They prioritize other people's thoughts and feelings. That's what's most important to them. And they want emotional aspects in their communication. They want how you feel about it, or does it make you happy, more so than just facts and figures. This person is often very approachable, perceptive, friendly, empathetic, considerate, steady, loyal, devoted. They usually make excellent team players because they are concerned about everybody else on the team. And their saying in a group situation or a project would be, let's all do this together. Some of the things to watch out for in this quadrant would be that this person would often avoid conflict and confrontation. They avoid risk. They might be easily hurt or offended because they feel things much more than other people, or that, like I said, those things are most important to them. They really prefer to be consulted about their ideas, but they want support for their feelings, like how they're feeling about a job or about a project. They like a personal, relaxed, no tension work environment. Well, that seems to be like, I would agree with that for most of us, honestly. Okay, so I know that this is lots of words and lots of information. So I'm going to keep plowing through though, unless somebody has something they want to jump in with.
There's nothing in the chat at this point, but if there is, I will let you know.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
So if you score heavily in the lower left quadrant of that chart, some of the terms used for that lower left quadrant are pragmatist, director, driver, converger. So, don't let that word director throw you off there. Because we're in libraries, director often means one thing, but director in this case means that they want to manage, they want to direct the action. On the list on the left, this person is a thinker and a doer. They want to think about it and then they want to do it. They are very functional and practical. They, like I said, they want to be hands-on. They value action, problem solving, and closure. They need purpose. They want discussion to be step by step. They want to know exactly how we're going to get there. They often need to be in control and want to get things done. And they're focused on success. So some of the describing words for that person are they're independent, they're ambitious, they're decisive, confident, direct. They like things fast-paced, goal-oriented, and they're a real go-getter. And their phrase that they would use would be, let's figure out how to do this. Okay, so then things to watch out for in this quadrant, or this person may want to manage and control things, which sometimes is great and sometimes is not. This person can be really impatient if things are going slowly. They want things to get done and get done quickly. They might come across as insensitive. They may become easily bored. There again, as if things are going too slowly for them. They really prefer less restrictions. They want support for their goals. And they really like a busy, efficient, structured work environment. Okay, so moving on to the next one. We're in the last quadrant. We're in the lower right quadrant. And in that one, the people in this quadrant are often termed a theorist, an analyzer, a thinker, or an assimilator. So in this quadrant, people like to think about things and observe. So think and watch. They're very analytical. They're very logical and focused. They value procedures and information. So these are the people who really like rules and details. They really want the data, numbers, and facts, and like, bring it on. They really want you to give them all of those details. They really avoid emotional validation. So they don't want to be asked, how do you feel about this? They really want the data, and then they're going to make a decision based on that. So the terms used to describe them are critical thinker. They're often very private about their personal lives. They're organized, systematic, deliberate. They're perfectionists, precise, conscientious, methodical, and problem solvers. So their phrase would be, let's make sure we do this right. So then on the other side of it, things to watch for in this quadrant would be that these people may be slow to make decisions. That's because they really want time to think through things. They're thinkers. They do research and they look at issues from every angle. So there again, they need time. They may really have high expectations of themselves, and then they often transfer that to other people too. So they expect a lot. They may come across as overly critical, pessimistic, or irritated, depending on the situation. They really want support for their thoughts, their smarts, their intelligence. They like a structured, orderly, predictable work environment.
Sherri, can you remind us what the name of this framework is?
Sure. Everything I'm saying today is really based on the Kolb.
Kolb. And that's with a K?
Yes.
K-O-L-B?
Correct. K-O-L-B. And it's David Kolb. And you can find him online. He is actually still working. I believe he and his wife are working as a team now. You can purchase their learning inventory, and they've actually updated it. So the things I'm giving you today are based on an older version of their learning styles, but this is the one that I encountered and was most familiar with. They've actually updated it and changed it slightly. But this one really makes sense to me.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, so to move on, to give you some tips for communicating, as is supposed to be the purpose of this talk, I think. So hopefully, when you are communicating with an upper left quadrant person, so I'm not sure what your style is, but if the person you're talking to or trying to reach falls in that upper left quadrant, it's best to be quick and to the point. You want to give short and direct instructions. You need to be friendly because they are at the top, that deals with feelings. You need to support and be open to ideas. You need to socialize a little and talk more than a work. Like that means like you need to ask them about their family, or you need to ask them how they are, to get them to open up and be receptive to what you're saying. Casual manner is best with them. Humor works. You need to present them with new and fresh ideas and projects. You need to skip extraneous details and, quote, boring material if possible. Like I said, this person is one who can become bored quickly. They really like visuals and a variety of ideas, and it really helps them to see it. And like I said before, they're really focused on results. So that's how you should communicate, is not on all of the details on how to get there, but your goal, your end result, and what you're looking for. So before I go any further, I just want to make sure that I say that this style of communicating, or what I am proposing, really does put the work on the communicator, the person giving out the information. If you are the person who wants to be understood, and you're the person who wants to give out work duties, or you are trying to get a project completed, if you're the one who needs things to take place, then it is your responsibility. It's our responsibility to adapt our style to the person hearing the information. Which, yes, it does take work. It's not super, super simple. What I mean by that is it's not just the easiest thing in the world and you can get it done in 5 seconds, but it is totally worth the effort if you can adjust how you communicate to how that person needs to hear it. So, moving on. If you're trying to communicate with a person who falls mostly in that upper right quadrant, then tips for doing that would be to be patient and very sincere. Build a relationship with them, and you need to focus on their feelings. So this is the person who they want you to ask how they feel about it. They want you to ask if this is stressing them out. They want to be focused on feelings rather than on details. So they expect you, they want you to be authentic, relatable, and a good listener. So be prepared to listen, because these people do they do like to share. Be receptive to different ideas, different points of view. Clearly explain anything new or changes being made. Follow through with promises. That goes back to being authentic and sincere. This person really needs to trust you. Conversations should be casual, and then you follow up with the details later. Be very warm and welcoming. All right, So if you're trying to communicate with a person who falls in that lower left quadrant, then it's good to be clear, concise, and precise and get straight to the point. This person really does not need you to socialize with them. They want bullet points. They do not want the details. They want to be able to verify what you're saying, address issues methodically and in an orderly fashion. And you try to keep things in linear order, like step by step. Use timelines and goals, and they appreciate concrete options for obtaining the goals. Okay, last quadrant, that bottom lower right. Communication needs to be supported with facts and data, and be prepared to receive and answer their questions. So you need to really think ahead before you go to this person and have your details ready. Have your research done and kind of try to anticipate things that they may ask you. You need to be articulate and logical with fully formed ideas. And what that means is this person, you're not going to go to this person and ask them for their ideas. They want you to come to them and say, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. A little small talk and socializing goes a long way. So they may want a little bit of it, but not much. Give them time to think things through. Don't expect decisions on the spot. And then put things in writing. Okay, so one of the last things that I have to give you is just a couple of examples. And I am taking this directly from the Kolb Learning Style Inventory Workbook 3.2. So I did purchase one of these workbooks, and these are some examples that they give. So consider the analyzing style employee who is constantly frustrated by encounters with his initiating style manager. As far as he can see, she pays little attention to the detailed facts and figures he carefully prepared. She, on the other hand, is completely frustrated by the amount of detail and extraneous information he provides. So I think a lot of us have been in that situation. In this case, the employee would be better off presenting the information to the manager in a bulleted, highlighted, this is what I suggest manner. In doing so, he would appeal to her learning preferences and get through to her in a way that he didn't think was possible. On the flip side, the manager would benefit from an appreciation of different learning styles. She should acknowledge the work that the employees put into preparing for the meeting and assure him that although she is quite busy at the moment, she will make a point of looking through the information as soon as she has time. So did that kind of make more sense if you hear it in an example? So it goes, another example of two different styles trying to communicate with each other is consider a couple assembling a bike. She has an analyzing style and prefers to read the instructions, account for all the parts, and lay out the tools. He has an initiating style. He scatters all the parts around the room, immediately begins assembling the handlebars, and has no idea where the instructions are. So, you know, to successfully assemble the bike, the best thing to do would be they would combine their styles. And both styles are represented, and then the couple could efficiently put the bike together. And then I'll just give you one more. So think about a team that creates an advertising campaign for a new product. Nearly all the team members prefer the initiating style. They share a preference for action and rarely disagree. They quickly create and place an advertisement in an industry magazine. However, since the team lacks the more reflective imagining, reflecting, and analyzing styles, research and analysis that would have provided support for a targeted direct mail campaign, for instance, is never considered. So one of the main points about this is that no style is any better than the other, and that we really need all of those styles to be successful, especially in a project or like that last example. If you gather people who are like you and you all get along and everybody thinks the same, then you often miss things. You often lack the details, or maybe you miss the big picture. So it's really important to have people of all those styles. And hopefully some of these tips and explanations will allow you to be open to communicating in a different manner.
So I have a comment from Lola, which echoes what you're saying. Previously, the hardest thing is being an all upper person, trying to communicate with an all lower person. And I can definitely understand how that would be an issue when you're so used to dealing in this kind of feelings sphere and a lot of the things dealing with emotional well-being, and then you have somebody that just wants to get to the point and not worry about all the fussy stuff, and they can seem aloof and standoffish, and it really is just a communication style. So, and I suspect that Lola, if it was somebody that was from the all lower quadrants, would say the same thing, that the hardest thing is trying to communicate with somebody in the all upper quadrants as well. What were you saying, Sherri?
Yes, exactly. It's hopefully if we understand where another person is coming from, if we take the time to do that, it might help us if we take a step back and we can say, oh, that person, I don't think that person really intends to be rude.
Right.
That's just how they're needing me to share the information. They don't want to hear about my weekend. They don't want to hear about this. All they want me to tell them is the facts.
Well, and because I think that part of that is, and this is, so I tend to be somebody that falls in the lower quadrants. And so when there's all of this extra information, it comes in as extra information. So it's not just relationship building, it's not all of these things. It's like, okay, so you're telling me about your family, how does this need to go into this thing that we're talking about, this project? And so it becomes like this extra like brain chaff that needs to then be sorted through to get back at the other things. Now, this is just me speaking for myself. I can't say that everybody else in the lower quadrants is like that. But all of that stuff comes in as information that then takes time to sort through, where it's definitely not anything like saying, well, I don't care about you, or feelings are terrible, or any of that. It's just, it slows down all of the processing that I require to do a thing. Karen has a question here. How can you learn what style someone is other than giving them the test?
So my suggestion on that is to just take some of the information presented today, or look things up on your own on these different learning styles. And I think you can often determine what you think a person is, at least, by their characteristics, by the things they show to others, and the way they interact and the way they react. It's not guaranteed because you're not getting it straight from that person, but you can often tell where a person falls after you've talked to them and watched them over a period of time.
And Eve brings up a good point. Just ask them. So if you provide your staff or whoever you're trying to communicate with these resources that Sherri has brought, they're going to self-identify to some extent. Now, that of course is going to depend on how self-aware they are. But
Right.
at the same time, they're going to get most of it pretty right. So just ask them, yeah. And Lola says it is a good interview question as well. So now I will say, Sherri mentioned several leadership things that she was involved with. The one that I was involved with was actually through the state library. It was the Indiana Librarian Leadership Academy. And what we did for that, and I don't know if they're still doing it, it's called Strengths-Based Leadership. And that is another assessment that you can get the books actually probably through Evergreen. Now there is a code that you would need to go in to get to do the assessment and to get like these reports that you get. But then there are all sorts of free Myers-Briggs out there, or the other one that I can never remember. It starts with an E. It's an E blank 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 Graham. That also serves as an assessment, and then maybe synthesize those things into this to kind of come up with that communication learning style is valuable as well.
And I'll say hello to Lola. She and I were both in a leadership program together, so she experienced some of this with me.
She says hi back to you. And Courtney said, and I still can't, I never say it out loud, is it an Enneagram? Or I never say that word out loud, but it's E-N-N-E-A, gram.
Great, thank you.
If there are any more questions, if not, thank you so much, Sherri. This is always a good conversation to have. I appreciate your leading this. Have a great day, everybody else. See you guys on the flip side.